Hi, everybody. Hope you're well today. Uh, if you are new to Stress Reset, welcome. If you're new to CommunityFIT, welcome. I'm James, and I'll be your host for today. Today, we're going to have an exploration of how to better move through the stress cycle. So, I thought today we would talk a little bit about normalizing stress and sort of an idea around what even is this class? What are we doing here? So, I think what's really important to understand is that you have stressors and you have something called stress, and they are not the same. Stressors are things that happen out in the world. It could be traffic. It could be social distancing. It could be an argument. It could be a conversation. It could be a number of things. A lion walking into the room, exercise. And then you have what's called stress. And stress is a biologic happening in the body, and it's generic. It is how your body responds to things happening out in the world. And whether your body physiologically deems what is happening in the current moment as safe or unsafe. Do I feel like the need to fight, flight, freeze, move away from, fight against this thing? Or am I okay with what's happening? And sometimes we think, oh, this thing out here is stressing me out, and so I need to not have this thing happen in order to be stress free. That's never going to happen. Your boss is never not going to be your boss. Traffic will continue to be traffic. If you are married, if you are in relationship with people, if you have children, if you have friends, you will continue to have conflict. It's just part of being alive, which is great news because there's nothing weird about you. There's nothing abnormal. Your body is going through biologic processes. Now, the crux of it is we are not taught how to be in relationship, how to move through, how to contextualize, understand, metabolize, be with the sensation of stress. So if this is your first class, we have worked on strategies of how to move stress through the low body, how to move stress through the middle of the body. Today, we're going to be working a lot with the belly and the spine. And we're going to start off with a little bit of an experience that is going to be the guiding force of what it is we do today. So if you're like, oh, I carry my stress, I'm constantly tight and stressed down, tense in my hips or up in my neck and shoulders. As Alicia mentioned, we now have videos on demand for you. You can go back and look at those. We will continue to touch base on all of those. But today in particular, what I'm inviting you to do is sit comfortably on a firm surface. You might need to be in a chair. You might need to be on a bench. Sitting on the floor may feel great for you, or it may not. Please don't martyr yourself today. Don't go, well, he's sitting on the floor, so I should be able to sit on the floor. I often will do this sitting on a hard bench. In fact, when I teach this, I'm almost always on some sort of a bench. Today, I'm going to be here because I floor sit a lot. So this is very accessible to me. Be where you need to be. The reason it needs to be relatively firm and things like a bed, a couch, a soft cushy chair does not work is because you're going to need some feedback today. So sit. If you want your eyes open, if you want your eyes closed, it's for you to decide. But once you're sitting, see if you can just tap out of the brain for a moment and ask yourself, how do I know I'm sitting? Not, oh, I've asked myself, my brain has required that I sit, but how does my body know that I'm sitting right now? For example, for me, I know I'm sitting because I feel some firm surface underneath my butt cheeks. I can feel my feet touch my legs here, and my knees are not supported, so my body realizes, oh, there's a crisscross thing. I realize I'm not in a chair because there's nothing supporting my back. So how do you know you're sitting where you're sitting? How does your body know that? And does your body like it? If not, move. Move somewhere where it can be comfortable sitting. And once you're sitting, I want you to tap into, you're going to see me close my eyes a lot today because this is a very somatic practice. This is a very, very body-driven start to today. Once you have that, I want you to be aware of your two sits bones, the bone underneath your right butt cheek and your left butt cheek. And there are two bones. If you can't feel those, adjust yourself to where you can feel those. And can you just allow those two sits bones to be more grounded and to be wide? You can't force them wide. There's no muscle to do that. What often happens, especially as we're stressed, is we dilate and we squeeze the sits bones together. And what I'm asking you to do today is to dilate open to the experience. Now, if you're like, James, I can't do that. I've had a stressful day. Do a little handshaking. Do a little breathing. We're going to go into a breathing exercise in a bit. Do a little rubbing of your hands together and getting them warm. All of the stuff we've done the last few weeks of Stress Reset and the last few years of Move Lab. And just be there. Can I allow my sits bones to get wide? Just notice whatever it is you notice there. For me, what I notice is that I get a little more grounded, a little more centered. And then I want you to take one or two fingers and place them in between your two eyebrows. Now, this in and of itself is an acupressure point for relaxation, turns out. So if you need to, you can do a little self-gentle massage right there, or you can go into this practice. Can I just allow the spot I'm touching to get wider and bigger, as if that spot gets to dilate open? Maybe I think of it as allowing my eyebrows to get further away from each other. My sits bones are wide, my forehead, eyebrows are wide. Now, if you're still with me, can I be with the brain space right behind the eyebrows, as if I'm now inside of my brain, right behind my eyebrows? And can I allow that space to feel a little more wide, a little more relaxed, a little more supple? Where we are in the body is at the bottom and the top of an imaginary midline. That imaginary midline is the space of what's called the primal streak. You don't need to know that, but what that is the embryologic process that I went through. And if you're here with me today, you also went through. It's how our cells in our mothers cleaved and folded and became us. It's a biologic process that our bodies go through. And what we're doing is envisioning, imagining, embodying that space in our own bodies now. The bottom, sits bones, the top, right behind the eyebrows. And all of the space in between, you may want to think of as your spine. You may want to think of as a tube or a channel, an energy flow, a pole, whatever works best for you, that joins the bottom and the top. And can you just allow that to get a little wider, get a little deeper, get a little more supple? It's an allowing process. It's not a doing process. You can't make this happen. It's a letting go, a yielding. So that my sits bones feel a little wider. My forehead feels a little wider. My midsection feels a little bit wider. In fact, I'm being asked by my body to adjust the way I'm sitting. That no longer worked for me. So if you feel like you need to move, go ahead and do that. You may even want to lie down. Just be there. Now, take one hand, whether it's your right hand or your left hand, place it on your right ribs. And you now have this imaginary midline. Can you breathe from that imaginary midline toward whatever hand is touching your right ribs? And exhale. I'm just allowing my sits bones to be wide, allowing the forehead to soften, allowing my middle section to soften, and breathing to what I call the right. Now, if I have access to that, maybe I breathe from my midsection, the midline, to the wall to the right, as if I'm breathing out into the room itself. As if my breath moves beyond my body into the space. then maybe I do it on the other side. Breathing into the space when you feel ready. My experience with this is that my attention gets very grounded and right here, but that my senses become really heightened. It's like I can hear things that I couldn't hear before, see things in a different way.
Yeah. Okay.
If everyone could just check that their mic is on mute, just for a moment. Good. Now, this is a very grounding practice. There's some biology behind this. When we get stressed, tense, tight, our pelvic floor tightens, our diaphragm tightens, our spine kind of mobilizes for action, like we're going to have to run, move, navigate the stress. By attuning and allowing yourself to get wide in the pelvis, wide through the ribs, wide, and pay attention to your breath, what you are doing is physiologically reassuring your body, I'm okay here. We're okay. Regulating yourself through awareness of what is going on. What am I paying attention to right now? Because if a lion walked into the room right now, you're not going to be able to pay attention to, are my sits bones wide, or where am I breathing? You're going to need to get out. And the same is true if you're in an argument, if you're in traffic, if you are in an important meeting, if you are going to present something. But if you can carve out a moment to just pay attention to wide sits bones, to wide breath. And the beautiful thing is no one has to know you're doing this. I was just teaching this to a client, and I said, this right here is probably the most valuable practice I can give you for nonviolence, for conflict resolution, for important conversations, for dealing with struggle and stress in your life, especially interpersonal. Because when I allow myself to relax, yield, dilate, open, my nervous system calms down. And because you and I are interconnected, when you watch me, when you are with me as I do this practice, which you don't even know I'm doing, I'm just allowing it. What ends up happening is your nervous system regulates in a positive way, and we co-regulate together. So suddenly, important conversations get easier. Conflict resolution happens smoother. Traffic does not seem so important and big. Just opening up to the experience. So take that with you through today's practice and continue to play with it for the rest of the day, for the next week. Good. From there, let's go ahead and have everyone lie on the floor or just rest comfortably. I'm going to start on the floor, and then you're going to notice that I'm going to stand up or be up so that I can demo this somewhere where you can see. As I mentioned, we're going to be working with the midsection. So many of us carry stress in the belly, in the gut, in the intestines, in the diaphragm. And that's when you get nervous belly, anxious belly, IBS issues. So we're going to take both hands, one on top of the other, and rest them right to the solar plexus, right where the rib cage ends and the belly begins. And just be there. Allow your sits bones to widen. Allow the forehead to widen, breathing right and left. And where you are touching right there is approximately where your stomach is. So imagine a really soft and supple water balloon, not one that is feel too big, but a supple water balloon. And what I invite you to do, I'm going to sort of demo this. I want you to push down on the right side and the left side and the top side and the bottom side of that water balloon as if, and I'm just sort of demoing so you can see what I would be doing here. I can sort of move around, I can squish it and release it. I'm just palpating, moving through, squishing and releasing that imaginary water balloon. That's actually your stomach. So as I go through that, I'm not pushing too hard because we know a water balloon would break. I'm just sort of moving through. Where am I inclined to breathe? Where do I need to just exhale or inhale? And what feels important here? For me, as I press down on the pinky side, so kind of low stomach, I get a subtle message of, oh, that feels important. It doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel good. It just feels like, oh, that's different than touching everywhere else. So in my body, I go, oh, that's an important area to continue to touch. Now that I'm touching there, which again for me is this aspect, you might be to the right or to the left. I can't tell you how to touch and how to do a self-massage. It's self-guided. What I can do is share my experience. But as I touch the bottom of where my stomach is, I can feel my sits bones widen more. I can feel my tailbone and my sacrum soften. You may be different. You may notice it up in a shoulder. You may notice it in your ribs or in your legs, wherever it is that you hold tension. Do you notice that being released as you release, as you self-massage, as you caretake your own belly? Take a few breaths into that. One or two more breaths. Then, with your hand on top of your hand, right on your belly, start to take both hands to the left. Circulate it down towards the belly button, lower than the belly button, up and to the right to end right on the stomach again. Take it to the left, down, to the right, and back up. I'll demo up here again. I'm going to take and move it to the left, down, up, and over. So if my stomach were a clock, and I'm up here on my ab, or up here on my stomach, that's 12 o'clock. 3 o'clock is to the left, 6 o'clock is above the pubic bone, 9 o'clock to the right, back up to 12. And I'm just moving circularly in a very specific direction. This is the direction of digestion. So we're moving in the direction of digestion today. Now, does an area on that clock feel important to stop at? How does 2 o'clock feel versus 7 o'clock? How about 4 o'clock versus 11? Where does it feel important to pause and breathe and dilate open to the experience? What do you discover there? Again, it's not about, oh, I should feel more relaxed. This is helping me avoid stress. What it's doing is helping your belly region today process and move through stuck reactions to stressors. That's what we call stress. So I'm helping to sort of coax my own body, convince my body, you're okay here. Because again, if a lion were to walk in the room, you do not have time to massage your own belly. So because you have time today to do this, your body hears and interprets, I'm actually more okay than I think I am. And then continuing to move, find another important area. As we've discussed in previous classes, I know my body is metabolizing stress when I want to take in a great big inhale, or I swallow differently, or I hear the sound of digestion, what it sounds like when my stomach is digesting food, or when I'm hungry, when my stomach is growling. Or if I get really sensitive, when I just feel myself shift. Like, oh, I was a little stressed and now I'm not. Oh, I felt this way and now I feel a different way. That's more nuanced, but sometimes listen, oh, regulation. Big swallow, regulation. Gurgling stomach, regulation. Then continue to move. Just moving through the belly region. Now, after a moment, let your arms open up. Drop both knees over to the right and be there. For some people, this is enough rotation. For other people, they want their knees stacked. For still others, the top leg needs to be stretched in order to feel like a washcloth being wrung out. Once you feel that version of rotation through the belly, be there and breathe into it until you feel it soften. And softening is subjective. For me, it's when does this no longer feel like a stretch? When does it just feel like a posture, a position I'm in? Once it feels that way, navigate back to middle and give your body a moment to ground and center before you go to the other side. Then when you feel ready, drop your knees. Are your sits bones still wide? Is the forehead still wide? Do you still have access to breathing right and left? Be in your rotation and breathe. Couple more breaths. I could just feel my own sits bones wanting to contract here. So I had to have an internal conversation with myself, like, why? Let it open up. You're okay here. Come back to center and be there. From there, do a pelvic tuck as if you're going to go into a bridge or you're lifting your tailbone off the mat, pressing your low back into the mat. Then change your mind, rock away, arch your back, let your tailbone sink, and then tuck, untuck. It's a rocking sensation through my body. As I do that, what I'm doing in my own imagination is allowing the guts, the stomach, the pancreas, the kidneys, the gallbladder, the appendix, all of the things to sort of jiggle back and forth. I'm not squeezing my abs. I'm not trying to do an exercise. I'm jiggling. This may be even better. I may want to actually begin to jiggle. This jiggling may be where it may just be a rock for you. It may be this jiggle. If you have access to it, can I stretch one leg out and keep the jiggle going? Sits bones wide, breath relaxed. If I can do that leg, can I change my mind and do the other leg? If I can do that, how about both legs? Here, I have to use more of my heels than the ground. If you notice, my feet are doing a point flex to help me out. My neck, my head, my spine, all rocking, because for me, my sit bones are wide, my center channel is dilated open, and I'm aware that I'm okay here. I am okay here. Maybe you're not. Maybe you need to be at a smaller range of motion. Maybe yours is just breathing today. That's normal too. Slowly letting that quiet, and then change your mind. Let your feet point to the right, then the left, right, left, like windshield wipers. Can that begin to rock the pelvis, the guts, the ribs, the whole body? Can I resist the urge to squeeze my butt cheeks, to squeeze my abs? Slowly quiet that down. Reground your feet. Open your feet as wide as your mat and let your knees come together. Relax. And just be there for just a moment. Breathing softly, sits bones wide, everything dilated open. My stomach is like super gurgly and churning right now. I'm not hungry. It's just my body going, oh, I've been holding on to stress. And now I can move through that. I am someone who holds tension here in the belly region. So for me, these practices feel very important. Now, drop your knees to one side, roll over to that side. Use your whole body to come up. Now, from there, go ahead and sit however you feel most comfortable. Dilating open, going right back to where we came from. Now, imagine you have a hula hoop. Now, I know you may not be able to hula hoop, totally fine. We're in imaginary land. But I'm going to take and just kind of move through an invisible hula hoop. I can take it around the belly. I can take it around the ribs. I can take it around the neck. Can monitor moving from right sit bone to left sit bone. I can reverse that. And I'm just imagining that my spine gets to circulate. My belly, my gut, my kidneys, my spleen, my pancreas, all of the things gets to circulate. For some people, they prefer it from hands and knees, where I just get to kind of circulate through that. Some people prefer it from here, just getting to circulate through that, or reverse. There's no wrong or right place to sort of play with that. It's just honoring some movement through that imaginary midline, circulating through the body. Then find yourself centered, whatever centered it means for you. Where do you feel most grounded, most centered, most comfortable, most strong? Be there. Check in with yourself. Am I dilated open? What's my experience here? Do I like that? What from that am I going to take with me today and forward? How is something that I learned today going to help me to move through a stress cycle, knowing my boss is still going to boss, relationships are still going to be in relationship, traffic will be traffic, the world will continue. How do I metabolize, move through, and not clench on and contract around my experience? How can I let my body move through life a little bit better? Now, to tap into a practice we were playing with last week, where do I feel most spacious right now? How do I even know what spaciousness feels like? And then say to yourself, I am relaxed and freedom. I am open to experiences in life and freedom. And if you feel your sit bones contract, your body dilate, hold, just go, oh, look at that. I am resistant to relaxation and freedom. I am resistant to moving through life in an open way and freedom. And see if that helps you to move through your process. If you're like, James, I don't know what you're talking about, we've got videos to help you out with that. Hopefully today we helped you to move through your body and life a little bit better and helped you to reset some stress cycles. So thank you for joining us. We'll be back on Friday for another installment of Stress Reset. Hopefully you're joining us for Move Lab too. That's Tuesdays and Thursdays, all about building up some endurance around these practices. So I'll stick around for a little bit. If you have questions, I'm available for that. You can also email me at james@jamescrater.com. Thanks.
Thank you, James. That was fabulous as usual. Thank you so much. We have some good questions for you in the chat there. I'm going to let you read through and grab those. I think you're going to answer them much better than I am. Really quick, I just wanted to mention again, for those of you logging off, we do have links on our website now of the first 5 classes of this session. So if you go to choosewha.com/CommunityFIT, it's in the chat. If you want to grab it from there, you can grab those links and take those classes whenever you'd like. All right.
Hey, Alicia, will you put in the link again for people who signed on Zoom? For people who signed on late, the previous chat doesn't show up.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay.
No.
Yes.
Okay, we have a really exceptional question here. And the question is it common to experience emotional release during these practices? Like feeling like I want to cry, even though I'm not sad and nothing hurts? The answer is 100% yes. That is exactly what we're doing here. So here's how I think of it. We have stressors out in the world. As we mentioned, those are things that are happening. Our stress cycle is how our body, how we ourselves responds to stressors. We are unfortunately not taught in our life to successfully and openly move through stress cycles. What ends up happening is we hold on to them. And then the body over time gets more apt to sort of expect stress. Sometimes that becomes anxiety and over repetition. And if the event is big enough, so sometimes it takes little events, lots of them, or a big event, that becomes trauma in the body. And tension in our body forms around the emotional cognitive experience of stress, anxiety, and trauma. Our body is literally holding on in positions in space in expectation of bad things going to happen. When we move through this physiologically, what we just did, touching here, breathing here, moving, what we're doing is unwrapping, untying in a very safe way those ties around trauma, anxiety, and stress. And sometimes we have a memory of going, oh yeah, this is what I'm moving through. This is totally expected. And sometimes it's something that happened to you 5 months ago, 5 days ago, 5 years ago, 50 years ago, that your body is now finally able to let go of. And it can be really confusing at first. I mean, this comes from my myofascial background. I can recall being in early trainings and going like, I'm not sad at all, but I'm wailing. Or it's sometimes not a sad emotion. I have had moments where I just start laughing, or moments where I just get so angry and then it just goes through. The worst thing you can do in those moments is suppress and hold on, because you're literally going through a practice designed to help you move through, contextualize, metabolize, and let go of all of that. So find a safe space. That's why we always start, get comfortable where it feels like a safe space, because this is not, anything that I teach is not just a movement practice. It's life work. So hopefully that helps to answer and normalize that for you.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. And I can say, you know, I've definitely experienced in yoga classes and getting massage done, like getting massage therapy. I've had that same thing happen where I get overwhelmed with a certain emotion. It's not necessarily feeling sad. It could be any of those emotions that you talked about. And then I realized like, oh, that's my body like letting go of that thing, that whatever that thing was that I was holding on to. So yeah, I'm actually glad that happened to somebody today so that we could talk about it. Yeah.
We are headed there. So, you know, if you're still sticking around and if you've been with us for Stress Reset, this class more so than Move Lab is not necessarily cumulative, but more cumulative, because we just don't have a cultural understanding of how to work with stress. So if I, on day one, had put us into this practice, many of you would have been like, what are you doing? I don't get this. And so sometimes we need to work with, like, you've got tension in your feet, you've got tension in your hips, you've got tension in your neck, you've got tension. Look at that, you've got this, before we can sort of process through this. As we move forward, we're about halfway through. The last week and a half, we're going to explicitly go like, look at that. This is things that are happening. This is stress moving through your body. In the future, when you get confronted with this life event, here is what you're going to notice. But you got to have that relationship with this. So I'm so thankful that you would have brought that up as a question, and that people are going through that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all very much. I don't see any other questions. So we will see you tomorrow for Move Lab. Awesome.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Raymond. Bye, James.
Bye.